Brian Kirsch, instructor at MATC. Higher education, vSphere 6.7. So primary use case is spinning up lab VMs. So we may spin up several hundred VMs for students to use to work with. Could be Windows-based, Linux-based, and it's about creating these VMs, destroying them as soon as they're done. So there's a lot of creation, destruction, also spinning up VMware environments as well. And the vSphere 6.7 product, the optimization is great with that, because in the older 6.5 and 6.0, it was sluggish. And when you're spinning and destroying things, it's kind of a big deal to have that higher performance. So two things. One of the big ones was the quick boot. So you didn't have to wait for the host to do a recheck on memory. You do an upgrade, it's not a 10-minute reboot cycle. You can bring your host on and offline. The other was the database optimization. They did a lot in enhancing the performance, and they really took down the memory utilization and increased what it brought. And you see a lot more responsiveness, and especially with having the HTML5 client now, it feels like a much snappier product. So we don't do a lot with the encryption, but the ability to encrypt something, and if we send it off-site. So we have multiple locations, we can encrypt our VMs if we need to, but we don't have a big need for it, but it's nice that it's there. Our mission critical is our classroom. So if we have college students that can't work, they're paid to be there. They're paying us for this environment and everything else. So if we're down for a day, that's a real problem. And given that people have a choice of where they go for education, we have to be always available. And otherwise they will go next door. So for us, it's about student success. And you can only do that if you're up and running. I don't have a percentage, but I will say it's noticeably different in the speed of how the database is working and how you move through the client. Everything's a little bit more responsive, and part of that is getting rid of the Flash client as well, but you're seeing just a general overall performance increase in everything you do, whether it's the monitoring aspect or deploying. Probably the biggest feature that everybody wanted was the HTML5 client. That made everything native, that made everything where you're able to surf through it. Going into the web page, you're no longer refreshing it. It feels more like an enterprise product now. With the Adobe Flash, it didn't feel that way. Stability's been good, I think, since the 6.0 days. I think the biggest issue with stability is the SSO. That is still an issue as far as integrating it with Active Directory, any large scale of that. That is still a work in progress. But the core stability aspect has been there, and it hasn't changed. It's just gotten better. No issue with scalability. I mean, as large as we wanted to go, as many VMs, we've never had an issue pushing the limits of it. I think majority of it's truly integrating it into the Active Directory structures. That doesn't seem to be there that well. VMware tech support has always been good to us. The biggest challenge is getting them the logs, but once they have them, the logs are so detailed that any possible issue usually is resolved within a few hours of that. So it's always been a positive experience. I think the biggest thing that you're looking at the improvement aspect is more self-service in the portals. So if you're in a web interface, getting a little bit more help through that aspect. Continual improvements to the client itself. I don't think you need to go much larger on what you support on number of VMs or on the size, because you're at some pretty high limits already. But a little bit more on just the management, the reporting aspect. You kind of have to do third party to get some of that. It would be great if it was a little bit more integrated. Given, we spin up and spin down hundreds of VMs, we physically couldn't do that with physical hardware. It would just be financially impossible. So having the virtualized infrastructure, being able to bring up, Windows, Linux, VMware, all within a virtualized environment, actually brings more technology into the classroom. Without that, we couldn't do what we do. There wasn't really a short list. It was the only solution. It's the only thing that made financial sense as far as being able to do what we needed it to do. Nobody out there had it. I'd say 9. Go big with your hardware. You have to be willing to invest in that hardware platform. Storage is key. Make sure you have enough performance with that. And when you're looking at the actual overall product, make sure you understand what third-party offerings you need to put in. It could be something from VMware or one of the partners, but it's going to be more than just the VMware suite. There's going to be 1 or 2 things you need to add into it, specifically monitoring or reporting. It's going to be the big draws.